Dr. Santa Cruz, we're streaming to YouTube now, so whenever you're ready, you can begin the meeting at 6:30.
John, still about 4 minutes. So I have 6:26. So according to the clock that I have here, we'll go at 6:30.
Sounds good.
Hey, John, could you send a meeting? Could you send the meeting to Trace Tolby, because there is an agenda item on bus purchases tonight, just in case there's a question?
Will do.
Good evening. I would like to welcome all of you who are joining us virtually, Dr. McCord and members of the team. Also would like to welcome all of you who are joining us on live stream. This is Tuesday, April the 28th, and it's a regular board meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order and call for a moment of silence, and then we'll go for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mrs. Uggetti. Please join us in a moment of silence. Thank you.
I'm hoping to stand correctly to lead the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
flag
of the United States
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
for all.
Thank you, Ms. Uggetti. I'd like now for Ms. Wilson to please call the roll.
Lori Wood,
Here.
Ms. Sheila Uggetti,
Here.
Mr. Reed Carr,
Here.
Ms. Jill Humphreys,
Here.
Dr. Charles Santa Cruz.
Here.
Mr. President, all board members are present. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. Item 2.0, 2.01 is approval of this evening's agenda. Is there a motion?
Dr. Santa Cruz, I'll move that we approve tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Is there a second?
Second.
Uggetti, all those, any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, then we will call for the vote. Ms. Wilson, would you please poll the board for their vote?
Yes, sir. Ms. Lori Wood, what is your vote?
Aye.
Mr. Carr,
Aye.
Ms. Uggetti,
Aye.
Ms. Humphreys,
Aye.
Dr. Santa Cruz.
Aye. Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. We're now at item 3.0, 3.01, and Dr. McCord, you have the floor.
Dr. Santa Cruz, governing board members. Good evening to everyone and welcome to our meeting. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'll take a few moments and give an update regarding COVID-19 in Gilbert Public Schools. First, I'd like to start with remote learning. We're currently in the middle of our 5th week of remote learning and everything is continuing in a positive direction. The newness of this endeavor has worn off a bit, but teachers and students are keeping their nose to the grindstone and doing what is needed to be successful. I again would like to thank the students, teachers, support staff, principals, parents for their hard work, their patience, and understanding while maneuvering through this remote learning process. Your time, effort, and diligence are greatly appreciated. Additionally, I'd like to specifically thank our Technology Services Department. Every member of the Tech Services team has contributed to the success of this remote learning rollout. Not only do they provide training for 2,500 certified employees, but they continue to bring new thoughts and ideas to the table regarding how to improve the quality of the services we are providing. To all the employees of Tech Services Department, thank you. This could have never happened without you. To our Nutrition Services Department, did you know that our Nutrition Services Department is handing out on an average of 6,500 meals a day from our 8 locations? This is an incredible number, and I'm very proud of our Nutrition Services staff members for showing up to work every single day and ensuring that our children in our community have plenty of food during these uncertain times. You definitely make a difference. I'd like to talk about something that is definitely a topic of conversation right now, and that's graduation. Graduation is weighing heavily on my mind and the minds of our 3,100 graduating seniors. We are waiting to see what Governor Ducey will announce at the end of this week as it pertains to relaxing the restrictions placed on the general public and the number of people that can gather at one time. This may or may not impact our direction in regards to the graduation ceremonies. In the meantime, we've been looking at several different virtual graduation options. We're currently getting quotes from professional vendors to ensure any virtual graduation ceremony is of the highest quality. It will add as much dignity and respect to such a time-honored tradition. We want to give our seniors the best experience possible with adhering to any restrictions that are in place. I know that nothing will ever come close to replacing a traditional ceremony, but once we have concrete information, we will communicate out from the district level as well as the school level the plan for moving forward with our version of a graduation ceremony. That brings us to summer school. As we edge closer and closer to the beginning of summer, we have to reshape our thinking on how to implement our 12 summer school options. We generally have around 2,300 students attend summer school. Having that many students in a few locations would be very difficult to implement the current social distancing requirements. We are investigating a couple different online options for our students that we will be able to implement if that is the direction we go. Currently, the decision has been made to hold all Title I summer school entirely online. And again, we will make this decision on the remaining summer school options by the end of this week. And that brings us to school year 2021. There have been a few questions and some people wondering about what will school look like at the start of the 2021 school year. We've had discussions and are in the early stages of making plans if the school year does not start as expected and what that looks like for our students and families. Whatever may happen, please rest assured we will be prepared and ready to educate children. And lastly, communication. The past couple weeks, our marketing communications department, under the direction of Don Antistenis, has been sending out via email a weekly newsletter titled Connect, Create, Care to our families and our staff. The staff newsletter comes out on Wednesday afternoon, and the family newsletter comes out on Friday afternoon. Each issue has a brief message from me, and it contains valuable information and celebratory snippets about our students and staff. Please take the time to read through this as it contains information worth reading and knowing. Dr. Santa Cruz, that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. McCord. We'll now move to item 4.0. Before we do that, I would simply like to commend Dr. McCord for his very cogent remarks. I will abstain from making any remarks because I don't want them to be in conflict or contrary to anything that he might have said. We have discussed what he has written, and I am in full agreement with the approach that he is taking at this time. So I will abstain from any remarks. Please know that all members of the board are concerned with all of those culminating activities that take place at the end of every school year, and we are relying heavily on staff for recommendations. So I will leave it at that. Thank you, Dr. McCord.
Thank you.
We'll now move to item 4.01, monthly budget reports, and we'll turn it over to Dr. McCord and Mrs. Betts.
Thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz, governing board members. We have our monthly budget report presented to you tonight by Bonnie Betts, and we have Jackie Matten as well online with us for any additional information needed. Ms. Betts.
Thank you, Dr. McCord. I also wanted to let everyone know that Pat Donahue is online as well. So if there are any questions regarding any of the details on the monthly budget report, the three of us are available and willing to answer your questions. So at this point in time, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that you can all see the content associated with the monthly budget report. Okay, so here we go. So this is our March 2020 monthly financial report. So this represents data through March 31st of 2020. So we are a month in arrears. Again, as I shared last time, the monthly reports are meant to show you changes that have occurred month over month. So I'm going to begin with the very first page. These are the financial highlights that we've begun to provide to you, indicating the most notable changes that have occurred since the February report. So the other thing I wanted to point out is, again, the March financials do reflect the pending revised budget number 2 budget that is expected to be to you next Tuesday night for approval, as the final revised budget is due by May 15th. So under our operating budgets, we are noting the changes in maintenance and operations as well as unrestricted capital. So in maintenance and operations, our available balance decreased by approximately $1.4 million due to insurance liability expenditures. So we have started a process in which we are prepaying insurance liability against a very high deductible. So we were obligated to contribute an additional $400,000 to that prepay. In addition, there was a small increase in general supplies of $300,000, and then a small increase in salary and benefits of $300,000. It's important to note at this point in time that the deadline for unrestricted capital and unrestricted capital was April 13th, I believe, and then the deadline for spend out of maintenance and operations is April 30th, and we will provide that information to you in next month's report, excuse me. In unrestricted capital, the available balance decreased by approximately $800,000. So during the last, probably the January, February time, we began allocating out additional capital resources to our schools, and they have done a fair amount of due diligence in spending those monies. So as an example, they've spent about $100,000 on library books, about $220,000 on technology supplies, and then about $170,000 on furniture and equipment. In addition, we did make an athletic equipment allocation to assist all of our high schools and junior highs in catching up with some of their instructional supplies associated with athletics. So that was an increase of $230,000. And finally, transportation made a safety camera equipment purchase of about $100,000. So that accounts for the $800,000 increase. And then finally, the bond fund available balance decreased by approximately $400,000 due to school upgrade projects. So before I move on from any of these, are there any specific questions that I can address from any of you? Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and show the details of a couple of the reports. So the next slide.
Mrs. Betts, can I just ask a question on the previous slide? I just wanted to point out that this is the first time in my time on the board that we've actually given money to our schools for library books. So I am really excited to see that line in our budget. So thank you.
Great.
Mr. Carr, did you have a comment?
No, I did not. Sorry,
Sorry.
I might have moved and it looked like I was waving my hand. Sorry.
No problem. Thank you.
So, so looking at the maintenance and operations budget line, that's the first line that's highlighted in yellow. Please note that our budget revision number 2, again pending, is $239,467 and some change. 239 million, excuse me, 239,467,000 and some change. The year-to-date expended encumbered is 228,300, leaving us a balance of about 11.2 million. Going through, you can see everything's pretty much the same as it was in the prior month, but going down to unrestricted capital, as I indicated before, we have an unexpended available balance of about $4.7 million. We do expect that available balance to decrease a little bit as spend is continuing through April 13th, but we will have the final unrestricted capital numbers to you when we report the April 30th monthly report at the end of May. So before I move on, are there any questions about this? Great, thank you. Now I'm going to go through the detailed reports from here all the way to the end, which is where we discuss the bond. So these again are the federal grant reports, the state grants, enterprise funds, food service, and community school. Please note that at least through March 31st, the available balance in both of these enterprise funds is still very positive. Other district funds, the detail is there. The school student-based funds has stayed pretty much the same. And finally, I wanted to bring your attention to the bond fund, and in particular, the Roman numeral 2, which is in the middle of this particular slide. So please note that at the bottom, we have facility renewal and general school improvements. And we have a total available balance. This is as of the end of March 31st again, of $9.2 million. And I'm just sharing this information with you as it relates to the follow-up presentation regarding our summer school project. Our summer capital projects that will occur starting now, basically through the end of August. So if there are any further questions, I am prepared to answer any of those from any of you.
Board members, any questions? Okay. Seeing none, we'll continue. Item 4.02. Dr. McCord, did you want to introduce that item, Mrs. Betts?
Yes. 4.02, the 2020 Summer Bonding Capital Project. Ms. Betts and Mr. Dutchover will be presenting information for capital improvements that we make this summer and related to bonds. So they put together a pretty detailed presentation, and I'm excited for you to view it right now. Ms. Betts.
Thank you very much. I wanted to share with everybody that Albert is here next to me, so I'm just going to turn my screen so everyone can see him for a second. We are
welcome.
We are practicing social distancing. We're about 4 feet apart, but we are going to share the screen as we go through this presentation. To begin, I wanted to point out the title of this presentation, which is Summer Capital and Bond Projects. In all of our discussions, Albert and I have decided that we think it would be most beneficial to you to be able to show all of our capital projects in context to one another, regardless of how they are funded. So in the future, as we have additional resources from the School Facilities Board, SFB, we will include those SFB projects in these updates to all of you as well. So to begin, yes?
I'd encourage board members to ask questions along the way related to this, because some of these are also related to consent agenda items in terms of projects.
That's correct. Okay, so this is today's report. We're going to start with a capital project summary that represents all of the summer projects that we're expecting to do again through the end of August, most of which of course will be done in early August in time for school opening. In addition, we are breaking down the projects into 2 main categories: mechanical bond projects, and these are going to be specific to bond. So the mechanical bond projects and the structural bond projects. So the reason that we're categorizing these projects in this way is because that is the manner in which Albert has organized his work in operations. So the mechanical bond projects are managed and administered by both Albert and David Ayala, and the structural bond projects are managed and administered by both Albert and Mr. Steve Wells. Finally, at the end, I wanted to share a future bond sale recommendation that we will be bringing to all of you at the end of May. So to begin, our district-wide summary, all funds. So first of all, our total spend is expected to be just over $10 million. When we look at the other slice of the pie, the orange slice of the pie, about $1.1 million, that is primarily the upgrades that you approved at the last board meeting for the renovations of our transportation facility, Building G, as well as the bathroom renovations in Building B. In addition, there's a small amount of money in that orange pie from energy rebates. So Albert regularly receives rebates from SRP due to our continued oversight of our electricity spend. And those rebates are applied back into these types of capital projects. So directly, I think, Albert, there's $16,000 that was allocated to improve the lighting at the transportation department. Is that correct?
Yes.
So then, of course, the bond is just under $9 million expected moving forward from today. So to get into some of those details, as I shared on the monthly budget report, I've highlighted here the $9.2 million available for us to spend remaining in this bond sale. Recall that in the 2015 authorization, we still have about $8 million available, and we do have a new authorization that was approved by the community in November of 2019 to the tune of about $100 million. And we'll get into some of those details moving forward. So again, there's $9.2 million available through the remainder of the existing sale proceeds. So the reason why that's relevant, I wanted to share with you this summer project status. So as we get into this, what's not clear is how many of these projects that I have shown here have already been encumbered and expended. So I really wanted to share these details with you to have an understanding of how much money do we really have left in bond funds to sell. So if you look at that blue column there, that represents the amount of money we're requesting you to approve tonight. The orange bar, that represents all the projects that are still in development that will be coming to you probably in the next month. And then finally, the yellow bar is about $2.4 million. And those projects have already been approved by you and have been encumbered, but it has not been reflected on the monthly budget report because they were encumbered in April. And finally, it's really difficult for you to see on this slide, but you can see that there's about $68,000 that has already been encumbered and expended to date. So if I send you back to that last slide, that $62,000 is part of that 1.16 million that's encumbered under the facility renewal. So before I go any further, are there any questions about any of that? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So the next slide is the summary of the summer bond project specific to bond, and you can see the various categories. So if you look at the second category, the $2.35 million or so, central plant, HVAC, electrical, and lighting, that represents those mechanical projects that is under the responsibility of Albert and David Ayala. All of the other projects are structural projects. So that's the just under $9 million of spend that we are projecting through the end of the summer. In the next slide, you see the details of the unrestricted capital and the energy rebate. So you can see the energy rebate dollar amount, the $16,400 is coming from the energy rebates that I just described. And the remaining dollars will be funded with unrestricted capital. Any questions on that?
Ms. Betts,
Yes.
can you tell me a little bit about the district office parking lot upgrade? What does that have to do with having more parking available for our transportation department?
Right. That particular project is still in development, but I don't know if you remembered or not, but we did, due to the status of the house that was right on the southwest side of the district office complex, that has been raised. And so that's left quite a bit of property available for parking over there. And then in addition, that there is some small need to upgrade that parking over there. And then there may be a need for a small amount of money to be used to restripe the transportation parking lot to provide more room for the buses that are coming over from Power Based. So, and that $50,000 is generous. We don't expect it will be that much, but again, you will see more information about that moving forward.
Okay. I don't know. Will we vote on that going forward, or is it below the threshold?
It probably will, it'll be below the threshold, but if that parking lot upgrade is attached to another provider that's doing other work, and then the cumulative dollar amount to that vendor would exceed the $100,000, you may very well see that request.
Okay, and the rest of it we already approved last meeting, in our last meeting.
Yes, you did. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
And by the way, I thought that the chat would work, but my screen is fully taken up by the presentation, so I can't see the chat window. So if you guys could somehow just do it, Lori just did, and let me know that you have a question, that would be great.
Any other board members with a question? Please continue, Ms. Betts.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz. So again, the first section of this report is about the mechanical, and again, these are all bond projects, and these include the central plant, HVAC which is heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, I think. Yep. Electrical as well as lighting. So as Albert and I were discussing this, we thought it would be good for you to see the dollar amounts being spent by school. So in this particular slide, you can see that we are doing mechanical projects at 8 of our sites district-wide. Most of it is in central plant HVAC. You can see primarily Desert Ridge High School and Desert Ridge Junior High, as well as Carroll Ray, Boulder Creek, and Ashland Ranch. In addition to this information, we thought, well, it might be instructive to share with you the age of these facilities. So we basically repeated the same graph by showing you the age. So what's interesting is that you can see that Carroll Ray and Boulder Creek, as well as Ashland Ranch and Desert Ridge High and Junior High, they were all built in the 2001 to 2000 timeframe. We are now in 2020. So generally speaking, any central plant HVAC equipment has a useful life of 15 to 20 years. So we are right in the range for those replacements to occur. The other lighting and electrical is shown there at some of the other older schools. So are there any questions on that? Okay, great. So I'm now going to hand over the next slide to Albert Dutchover to provide some of the details.
Thank you. Board members, Dr. McCord. So as you see here, this is an overview of the central plant HVAC electrical lighting projects that Bonnie spoke about. So we have multiple facilities. The majority of the costs are represented in chiller replacements and lighting. We're looking at roughly $2.3 million of projects. Down to the next. Okay, so let me back up one. I apologize. So you see the second line down is Augusta Ranch main electrical switch. This is at a cost of $9,250. This switch is the main electrical feed for all utilities on the facility, similar to Ashland Ranch. And if you remember that one, we had a catastrophic failure, emergency failure, and that repair was in excess of $100,000. And that was due to the steps we had to take to ensure that we restored power to the facility. I'll move over to the next slide, which represents the switch. So there to the left, you see the switch. So this switch is showing similarities to possible failures as Ashland Ranch did. So we were trying to be proactive in the sense of getting it repaired rather than dealing with the catastrophic failure at an inopportune time, as we did with Ashland. Similar to this process, Highland High School, as you see to the right, that's the main electrical supply to the 9 portables on the facility. And as you can see, it's been weathered and the casing starting to deteriorate, leaving it for potential catastrophic failure, whether it be through weather or imminent elements such as sprinklers or whatever it may be. So again, we're trying to be proactive here to get that repaired so we don't face another large scale failure. So as we move on to the central plants, this is the Carroll Ray Ranch. This kind of gives the current layout similar to three of the facilities, Boulder Creek, Carroll Ray, and Ashland are set up similar to this, which has 4 air-cooled chillers on site. This is the main control interface, which again is and it's a dated technology that we are currently having issues with. This shows along with the central plant, we are doing the pumps, which are the main supply feed to not only the chiller, but to the facility for chilled water. So it'll come as a package for these repairs. We move on to the lighting. This was an example. This is a current example of Highland High School walkway, similar to the majority of their walkway lighting in their courtyard areas or the interior areas. They utilize bollard style lighting, which is, as you can see on the left and the right there. There's truly about 6 lights there. Only 2 are actually functioning in this area. Excuse me. And it's just a inefficient as well as a dated technology that's obsolete, and it's made it hard for repairs and replacements. This is up close of what that style of light consists of. We also have Mesquite High School, which is again is a dated technology as well as obsolete. The fixtures themselves are hard to replace or repair. They come at large costs. So what we're doing at both facilities is using a more universal fixture, LED fixture that gives it more of a illumination, a 360 illumination, allowing for additional lighting. And we will be doing complete pole to fixture replacement on these. I'll send it over to Bonnie.
Okay, before I get into the structural projects, are there any questions specific to Albert's details regarding the mechanical projects?
I had a question about the lighting. With the new lights that we're putting in at Highland and at Mesquite High School, is there something in place to help the lighting to be directed downwards so that we don't have light pollution in the night sky?
Yes, these are in I guess industry terms. I don't know if it's the exact term, but it's a spider mount fixture that's more of a downward illumination rather than a forward or outward illumination. So yeah, we do try to respect the night sky ordinance in a sense for light pollution in the surrounding neighborhoods.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Humphries. Any other board members have any questions for Albert? Okay, Mrs. Betts, you may proceed.
Okay, great. Again, moving into the structural bond projects, and these projects are the responsibility of Albert along with Steve Wells. Again, these include everything else: athletic venues, classrooms, flooring, paint, parking lots, performing arts, portables, roofing, school offices, everything else that's not mechanical. So again, to summarize these projects, due to the number of projects that are being handled, we thought it was best to separate out the projects between elementary schools and secondary. So if you look at this slide, you can see the various types of projects that we're doing on the right-hand side. And then you can see all of the schools underneath each of the bar graphs across the graph. So of the 27 elementary schools we have, we will be doing work at 15 of them, over half. The 2 most notable spend, or the dollar amounts on this chart, are at Ashland Ranch and at Vista. Primarily, those two particular schools will see a significant parking lot refurbishment, which will include bus lane enhancements. The bus lane enhancements are required due to Arizona Department of Transportation requirements associated with making sure that parent drop-off traffic is separated from our transportation bus traffic. We'll get into some more details about that later in the presentation. In the next slide again, we thought it would be useful for you to see the years, the years in which these schools were built. So as an example, note year 1989, that particular graph is Val Vista Lakes. So again, that's primarily the parking lot bus lane work that will be done there. And you can see moving forward in 2001, again, that would be Ashland Ranch associated with their bus lanes as well. You can see that a predominant number of the work is in flooring for all of those schools that were actually built prior to 2000. So again, Albert will get into some details regarding those. To move forward now, we wanted to share the structural projects at the secondary schools. So we are touching every single junior high school in this summer. So of the, oh gosh, how many are there? 11 secondary schools. We are touching all 11 in some way, shape, or form. Oh, except for Gilbert High. So I wanted to share two notable graphs on this chart. So Canyon Valley and Highland High School. So at Canyon Valley, we did, based upon the approval of the remodel of the Gilbert Transportation Center, we did communicate out to all staff that we will be consolidating transportation operations at Gilbert Base. So we will no longer be using Power Base for transportation. We are going to maintain a couple of the mechanics bays for at least another year, but generally speaking, the transportation department will be vacating that property. That does provide a potential opportunity for Canyon Valley. And so we are working right now, this is in development, working at enhancing the academic opportunities or the educational opportunities for the students that go there. They have been lacking science labs for some time. And so those two are high priorities on the list. The other notable bar graph is at Highland High School. And note, there's a lot of money being spent at on the restrooms at Highland High again. And I know you all remember because Albert and I presented in September the bond project completions that occurred last year, and there was a fair amount of restroom work done at Highland High School last summer. Due to the short time frame of the summer and not being able to address all of the restrooms at Highland High, we had to come back to handle the faculty restrooms as well as the locker room restrooms. Once those are completed, that should complete all the projects that are needed at Highland High for quite some time. So again, moving to the graph by year, you can see that Highland High was built in 1993, so it's over 25 years old at this point in time. So having all of the restrooms upgraded is definitely, we're definitely behind. And so we're very pleased to be able to bring that school up to standard. And again, the Canyon Valley program started in 2003. So it has been in existence for over 17 years at this point. And so it would be great if we could provide all of the educational opportunities for these students as we do our other students throughout the school. So before I go on.
Ms. Betts.
Yes.
Ms. Betts, if I could, I think this would be an appropriate time for me to interject a comment. As per our discussion this afternoon, I think as you look at the array of schools that will be addressed, both at the secondary and the elementary level, it is apparent to me at least that there is some kind of schedule that's already been either evolving or developed through your department and through Mr. Dutchover's department. And particularly as we look at the secondary schools at the high school level, I think it's important for our community to understand that while there may be a school like a Gilbert High School out of the array for this cycle, that it is not completely left out of any of the projects due to the fact that we may or we're looking towards summer school at Gilbert High School this summer, and so we didn't schedule projects there. It is in the schedule for subsequent years for projects that are necessary and worthy in the upcoming years. Is that a correct statement?
That is the full restroom replacement and other major enhancements are scheduled for next summer. And you, of course, will hear more about that as we go into the 2021 school year.
Yeah, I think it's important for our community and for our staff to realize that there is a schedule of renovation and repair that's evolving and working through your department and through operations. Thank you.
That's correct. Thank you. Any other comments or questions or concerns here?
Board members?
Dr. Santa Cruz? Thank you. I don't know if this is the right time to ask as well, but we will have more details. The Canyon Valley, you're just giving us kind of an overview, but we're not approving anything tonight. You'll bring details, specific details about any remodel for $800,000 dealing with Canyon Valley.
That's correct. We are just in the development phase. We've done the walkthroughs to get our first quote, and we of course are obligated to get 3 quotes. So we probably will have that to you no earlier than a month from now.
Thanks.
You bet.
Anyone else?
I did.
Ms. Humphries, go ahead.
So my question was just about flooring. Can you tell us how often we are addressing flooring, particularly in our elementary schools?
So Albert, can you help me with that answer?
I'll have to get the exact date. I was pulling it up right now. I'm sorry. But I believe we're at it's every 15 years, 10 to 15 years, I believe, for flooring. So a lot of these were behind. So we're a couple years behind. I don't think there's any site that we've touched that's right at that 15-year point. So some of these have already exceeded their life expectancy as far as replacements for carpeting.
Okay, and then the other question is that we are putting the carpet in. We find that to be easier and less maintenance than the previous flooring that we had.
Yes. So yes, we're using carpet squares. That's more versatile as well as it allows. It's easier on the maintenance from a perspective of repairs, stains, accidents that happen throughout the years. So that allows us to maintain that facility and keep it up to a higher standard.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Humphries. Mr. Carr, Ms. Ugetti, any questions?
No.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, hearing none, go ahead, proceed, Ms. Betts.
Okay, great. So now I'm going to hand this back over to Albert to give you the details, and we're going to start with the flooring renovations. And so I will hand this back over to Mr. Dutch. Thank you.
Okay, so we have we're looking at 7 facilities for carpet, and all these are on the board agenda for this evening at a total cost of $983,744, and we are looking at that cost spread amongst 2 vendors. So each facility, with the exception of Highland High, is slated for a complete flooring replacement. What that means is we do everything from the solid surface to the carpet. So whether it's VCT, tile, carpet, that's throughout the facility, that flooring system is going to get completely replaced. So as an example I have here is Superstition Springs Elementary. The picture to the left, we see their current corridor, and they utilize VCT tile or VCT flooring. So what we're going to do here is the school actually opted, they do like their solid surface flooring, so we're actually going to start implementing, rather than VCT, we're going to do LVT, which is more of a it's still a solid surface, but the maintenance cost and the maintenance time that goes into that is dropped significantly. So it's not a flooring that needs to be waxed and stripped annually. It's just a hard surface flooring that's durable that just needs to be mopped. So that eliminate a lot of the costs, the additional costs that come with maintenance and that servicing that floor. To the right, we have a standard classroom with a VCT wet area, which will remain VCT due to the sink in that area, as well as what we'll do is take the carpet out and that loomed or rolled carpet with the carpet squares. Again, like I said, we touch everything when it is a complete flooring project, we touch everything in the facility. And that goes as well for the multi-purpose room where we have VCT. Again, this will remain VCT due to the sports linings, the basketball courts, the PE activities that need to be represented on that floor. But those will all be replaced along with the flooring. Send this over to, still here. So bus parking lots. Did anyone have any questions for flooring before I move forward?
I think you're fine to proceed, Mr. Dutchover.
For bus lane and bus parking lots, we have on the agenda tonight roughly $1.5 million of bus renovations or bus lane improvement and parking lot improvements. Our largest points are Ashland Ranch and Vista Lakes, and as we get to those, I'll break those individual projects down. I will note that the Sonoma Ranch project is a large complete replacement project. Sorry about that. And all of these are currently in development, the larger scale projects, because we're still in the design and budgeting phase. So this photo here represents Vista Lakes in its current configuration, with an overlay of the potential improvements or the potential adjustments to that facility. So everything as it stands now, all asphalt areas are currently slated to be milled and reworked. So in other words, taken up and replaced with new asphalt, as well as to make these adjustments outlined in red. And what we're going to propose here in the future is to add a bus lane to the far north of the facility, which gives an independent entrance and exit for bus traffic, also allows some additional parking for staff. What this does is segregates the bus traffic from the pedestrian or parent traffic. And so the parents in the new configuration would come in from the south end and come around up to the north end and loop around and then back out the south end, which gives them a complete divide between bus and parent traffic. Currently, those two vehicles, are the bus and the parent traffic, currently intermingle. So there's safety issues at hand that we're trying to correct with this adjustment. This is Ashland Ranch. This is more of a road restriction, pickup and drop off issue. So similar to Vista Lakes, we have a high volume of parent traffic for pickup and drop off. So what's proposed here is, I don't have an overlay, which was nice on the previous slide, but this one shows, if you can imagine, here on the north end of the facility, northeast end of the facility, we're going to propose to put in a deceleration lane, which will bring traffic off of the main road in front of the school, which currently backs up, restricting residential traffic flow. So that deceleration lane will extend from the north end down to the south end of the drive, and then continue here towards the front of the facility, and then wrap into the parking lot to allow parents to enter and then loop around and exit. This project comes with a couple options, and that deceleration is the main portion of it, as well as the additional removal of some of these south spaces to allow for an expanded bus and traffic lane. But we would also make these parking spots up here on the east side. So there would be no loss. If anything, we'd possibly have a gain of 2 additional spots, as well as some wider traffic lanes and safer bus lanes. So renovations. We'll move into this. So we're touching 9 facilities, in all 30 portables. At each one, with the exception of Neely Elementary, we're doing interior exterior renovations. These are all on the board agenda for this evening. We're looking at roughly $875,000 for all renovations, and interior exterior renovations that details exterior siding, weatherization, as well as exterior lighting. Roofing is reviewed at that time, as well as we do the interior carpet, as well as paint and other repairs as needed. Neely Elementary is, again, the only exception. That would be for portables, but we are going to do the weatherization and the siding for that facility. This is an example of one. This is a break or opening in the siding, allowing for intrusion, whether it be just the elements alone, water intrusion, again, which could create a larger issue down the line. And then here's more of a wide area view of the portable, just kind of giving an example of some of the issues that we're having. Again, just another side of the portable. We will upgrade the lighting, as well as do weatherization around the door and exterior paint on the door, or on the portable as a whole. Other structural projects.
Mr. Dutchover?
Yes.
Sorry, this is Lori Wood. Dr. Santa Cruz, if I can I ask a few questions about the portable?
Go right ahead, Ms. Wood.
Thank you. This is, I don't know if this is for you or Ms. Betts or maybe somebody else, but when I think about our buildings and space, I want to make sure that we're really efficient in how we use our buildings and our space. And when I look at putting money into portables, I think, to me, in my mind, the point of a portable is that it's not a permanent structure. And so I just want to make sure, are we really using our space wisely? Do we really need, I don't doubt that these portables actually need the updates. I'm 100% on board with that. If we keep the portables around, I just wonder, why do we keep the portables around if we have space available at the schools, or do we not have space?
I believe you know what, I could give that to Miss Betts or Mr. Martin. The large, I guess the lion's share of the portables are at elementary schools, which again are being utilized. But I believe if Mr. Martin's available, he could probably speak to that better than I can.
Good evening. Good evening, Lori. Good evening, governing board. You have a good question there, Lori. When I look back 10 years ago, you are correct that many of our facilities had higher student enrollments than they do today. But over the last 10 years too, the needs of our schools have changed. And in particular, we've added a lot of different programs across the district, and many of them are now located at every school, some of them K-12, some of them elementary. So for example, you look over the past 10 years at the number of special education rooms, especially the self-contained rooms that we have added at all of our facilities. Amanda Sarah Preschool continues to be strong at the elementary level. At almost all of our elementary schools, we have at least 1 or 2 classrooms that occupy that space. And 10 years ago, we didn't have as many of those. We've had a huge growth in other preschool rooms, such as the building blocks and the K-prep rooms. And I counted the other day, we now have 26 of those rooms approximately across the district. So almost 1 per elementary school that used to not need a space. In addition to that, we've added instructional coaches that also need a space. And of course, this upcoming year, we are adding social workers. And most of the social workers used to practice in a small office, but many of them now are needing a classroom space because they're working with either a large group of students or an entire class of students with some of the second steps and other preventative curriculum. So when you look at that, even if a school were to say stay the same, maybe they had 600 students at one of our smaller elementaries 10 years ago, but now, and along with title services, some of those schools now have added 4 or 5 different support services that need a classroom for that. So that's why you haven't seen some of the portables gone away. Mr. Dutchover and myself have looked closely at these over the last few years through the enrollment management process. And we definitely see that when we're working with Rick Brammer, our demographer, that in the next 5 to 10 years, I would say that probably up to half of the portables probably will not be needed based on today's enrollment and based on how we are doing with class sizes and the various support programs that we have in the district. But definitely you bring up a good point. I think it's something that we can continue to address in the enrollment management committee going forward. But I also want to say, I think, Albert, this is the 3rd summer that we've done some renovations, and I think some of the portables I saw 2 or 3 years ago are in pretty dire need. And so at least we're trying to be proactive and preventative before they get in any worse shape in keeping those portables up to date and also as attractive as possible for our staff and for our students and families.
Thank you.
And yeah, just to add to that, Jason, on a personal note, definitely, you know, being around it in and out of the facilities throughout the years, I mean, you get a sense of that the students, and I guess I'd say the majority of the staff, feel an exile in the portables because they're not as inclusive, or they didn't feel as they're similar to the brick and mortar. And that's the approach we've taken to these portables as we do the upkeep, is to make sure that we're getting that cohesiveness between the main building as well as the portables, that they all just go together, and that learning environment is a nice, comfortable space for the students and the staff to be a part of.
Mr. Martin, I have a question to piggyback on what Mrs. Wood said. We have looked, and we are looking at a district-wide facilities plan to make sure that we're planning ahead and using our space effectively. We're still in the planning process for that, I presume?
Correct. Yes, we are.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Humphries. Please continue, Mr. Dutchover.
So we have other structural projects, again, that falls under the structural department with myself as well as Steve Wells. We're looking at multiple projects at roughly $0.1 million. District-wide, multiple facilities. So we'll look at a couple of those a little bit closer. So right now, the junior high athletic surfaces, we're trying to maintain a standard for playing surfaces, as well as safety, which safety again is going to be the biggest key to these upgrades. So here we have Highland Junior High School. This is the long jump pit. So you see the runway there is a rubberized surface, but if you look in the middle, there's a few little white splotches. As you get closer, once you get close to the area, you'll notice that that's actually the rubberization has worn away, and that's down to the concrete. Again, creating a safety hazard for athletes. So we had looked to rubberize that area similar to what we do at the high schools, and then give this its current rubberization a refresh. This again is another long jump pit. And as you see here, again, we'd like the standardization to be rubberization across the board. All the 5-foot portion at the starting point is rubberized, but you have bare concrete all the way across, which again, they only utilize a small 1/4-inch rollout pad during events. We'd like to see these rubberized again to give a more of a stable playing and safe playing surface. And this is up close of that takeoff area, and that middle piece there, you can see the rubberization is a little bit darker, but everything, the lighter gray or the lighter black, is actually asphalt that they're coming off of. Here, this is the long jump or the high jump pit at Highland Junior High School. Again, it is rubberized already, but it is deteriorating and failing, leaving an uneven, unsafe playing surface for athletes. We'd like to see that. I'd like to get that rubberized to create a stable surface. This is Greenfield Junior High, which just has an outline of where the high jump pit should be, and they currently utilize that grass area. Again, it's not a solid surface. We're susceptible to possible injury due to divots, whether it be a gopher hole, whether it be an issue with the grass as they go to make their approach for their event. And then this is South Valley Junior High. It's just an overall top view of their jump pit, as well as down to the bottom left of their long jump runway. Is there any questions on any of those? Or? And then we'll move to the Mesquite High School door hardware. This is its current state. The door hardware is more of a equipment failure. The doors have given us issues as far as locking, some of the exiting devices, and these are all exterior doors. These are where we have the main issues at that facility due to fixture failure, and we're looking to replace those to add more of a secure perimeter to the facility. And I'll hand it over to Bonnie for the future bonds.
Okay, before we go on to the next real topic, I just wanted to summarize the projects as it relates to those that we are asking you to approve, the vendor and the spend this evening. So the Mesquite High School door hardware is on the agenda under consent tonight. These the athletic surfaces, I think, are pending.
Pending, yeah.
We don't have all the quotes for that yet. We have the fencing upgrades around the cafe area at Greenfield Junior as well as at Highland. You can see that those are expended on this chart. So that's not included in tonight's agenda. But you can see at Highland High, the faculty and locker room bathroom renovations, we are asking for an approval request this evening, as well as the Pioneer Elementary roof replacement. That's an approval request, and the Quartz Hill interior and exterior paint approval request. So those are all on the consent agenda this evening. In addition, all of the portables we are requesting your approval with Belfour. And all the parking lots are still in process. We will bring those back to you. And finally, the Superstition Springs flooring project is under consent this evening, as well as all the complete flooring replacements throughout the school district. And these requests are for 2 vendors, both continental flooring as well as wholesale flooring. Then finally, just really quick on the mechanical side, all of those projects, including the lighting as well as the central plant, have all been approved and awarded by you. So I just wanted to make sure it was clear to you which of the projects are available for you to approve this evening. So before I go into the discussion about the recommendation for a next bond sale, I wanted to give you all an opportunity to ask any further questions.
Ms. Betts, thank you for that summary. Board members, do you have any questions additionally?
Dr. Santa Cruz, I just wanted to
Okay.
ask Ms. Betts, I do believe that we have one item, 5.12, approval of Roadrunner paving for parking lot upgrade for Sonoma Ranch.
That's correct. Thank you so much. Yep, I missed that one. Thank you very much. Correct.
Other than that, not the other parking lots that you discussed.
That's correct. And then just for details on Sonoma Ranch, that is a complete bringing down and milling out the entire surface and relaying it for Sonoma Ranch.
And that's due to the age and the condition of the parking lot.
The age and the condition of the parking lot, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Mrs. Woods. Anyone else, please? Okay, Mrs. Betts, please proceed.
Okay, thank you. So as I shared, the available bond dollars to date are roughly $9.2 million. And we have about almost $9 million of requests to take us through the summer, leaving us about $200,000 in existing bond proceeds to be used for next year. So based upon that information and the continued needs of our facilities here in Gilbert, I just wanted to prepare you for the fact that a month from now, at the end of May, the financial advisors will be here with me and Albert to make a recommendation to sell $40 million of bonds. So $8 million from the November 2015 bond and $32 million from the new authority of November of 2019. We hope to close in August or September. By delaying this to next year, we have an opportunity to make sure that we are controlling the tax rate and the impact on the local taxpayers here in Gilbert Public Schools. So another reason why we would like to take this opportunity is that there's continued historically low interest rates, which we believe will save our taxpayers significant dollars. As an example, in speaking with the financial advisors over the last couple of weeks, Scottsdale and some other school districts throughout Maricopa County have actually completed their sales, and they've seen a total all-in cost, interest cost of less than 2%, which is really remarkable, 1.7 to 1.9%. Obviously, the lower interest rate decreases the amount of interest that's included in the levy for the debt service every year on the bond side. In addition, we are continuing to pay off debt. I have shared this a couple of times. The fact that Gilbert has chosen to amortize debt over a very short time frame, 10 to 15 years versus the normal 20 years. And that has allowed us to pay off existing debt much quicker, giving us an opportunity to fill in that with additional debt, again, at a lower cost and a lower interest cost. And then finally, other items that are impacting us positively, such as the qualifying tax rate decreasing. It's decreasing by 12% going into the 2021 school year. I know that that's on the primary tax rate, bonds on the secondary tax rate, but normally our taxpayers are looking at our total school tax rate. In addition, the transportation revenue control limit levy, I had shared that with all of you at the last board meeting regarding the fact that we overstated our transportation route miles. That led to us having to do a 15 to bring that levy down. So that additional $1.5 million will not be levied going into next year. And then also the assessed value in Gilbert, in our Gilbert School District, is increasing by 6.5% going into the 2021 school year. And finally, we are continually making sure that we meet all the obligations of the November 2015 bond pamphlet, as well as the 2019 bond pamphlet. And I will be sharing details about all of this with you over the next couple of weeks prior to agendizing it at the end of May. I also wanted to share with you that at any point in time, just because you approve the authorization to sell the bonds does not mean that we necessarily will move forward. If the environment is not in the best interests of Gilbert Public Schools at the time, we will delay the sale to later in the fall or possibly next spring. So with that, Albert and I are prepared to answer any additional questions, and that does complete our report for this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Betts and Mr. Dutchover. And Ms. Betts, thank your staff. Your presentation, as always, was quite thorough and well done. I will open the floor for questions from any board member, please.
Dr. Santa Cruz, I have a question.
Go ahead, Mrs. Humphries.
Thank you. Ms. Betts, I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation. As Dr. Santa Cruz said, it was very thorough. I appreciated seeing the pictures and going through everything very carefully so we understand how these bond dollars and the capital dollars are being spent, and seeing that things are being brought up so that students are safe and have a good, safe environment. So thank you. I know it was a long presentation, but very, very thorough and a lot of detail for us. So thanks.
Great, thank you.
Any other board members with questions or concerns or comments?
I don't have a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Uggetti.
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. And that's the fact that having been in Gilbert since 1971 and going through all the growth, I totally understand that from like 89 on, that's when we built all our schools, one year after the other. So we have things that are going wrong now, and we have to deal with them. And I appreciate what you're doing. And I think that you've got a good plan about the schools that were built, you know, first and then the ones next. And I appreciate all that you've done, because we all know that, you know, after 30 or 40 years in a home or a school, things go wrong and we have to take care of them. And I think you guys have done an incredible job. So it's not a question, it's just a comment and a thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Uggetti. Ms. Wood, any additional comment or question?
No, thank you. I had all of my questions answered already.
Thank you, Mrs. Wood. Mr. Carr, any additional comment or question?
Thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz. I would like to echo the gratitude expressed to Ms. Betts and Dutchover for their work and all of their staff's work on this. And just echo, I know that I've had several conversations with Ms. Betts and about the bonds, and obviously we recognize from a taxpayer's perspective, if we didn't have to issue bonds, whatever the interest rate on zero debt is still cheaper to the taxpayer. However, we also recognize that not caring for our buildings in a proper way devalues them and ultimately leads to higher costs. So I appreciated Ms. Betts's comments about making sure that we are balancing these needs with the commitments to the taxpayer to try and keep the tax rates as low as possible. And the timing, if it holds, to take advantage of the low interest rates as we pay off bonds that have higher rates on them and replace them in order to maintain our buildings with rates lower. Our hope is to care for the facilities owned by our taxpayers, but to do so in the least expensive manner possible.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Dr. McCord, any additional?
No, I'd like to echo the sentiments of what everyone has said in terms of supporting this initiative in terms of making sure our schools are taken care of. As Ms. Ujetti said, there has been a long time where we had growth years ago, and when we weren't able to take care of the schools as properly as we wanted to, that bill comes due. And being able to have a structure in which we're able to do that and take care of so many schools, thanks to the voters of Gilbert Public Schools, we are able to make sure that our schools are well maintained and presentable for our students, staff, and our community. So thank you.
And if I could, Dr. Santa Cruz, I just would really like to acknowledge and give a shout out to Mr. Albert Dutchover. He has treated every facility as if it were his own home and is diligent about providing support and customer service, and has created a great process with both Mr. Wells and Mr. Ayala regarding capturing photos so that we can easily show you the before and after, so you can see how the bond dollars are being spent. So I just wanted you to know that his work is exceptional, and I am very appreciative of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Batson. We are echoing that very sentiment as well. Our departments and staff have been very diligent and very specific in how we are utilizing our time, materials, and dollars. So we appreciate you very much. We'll now move to item 5, items for consideration, discussion, direction, and possible approval. And I will have a comment once we have the introduction and a motion. Dr. McCord, anything to add there?
No, sir. Thank you. Dr. Santa Cruz, you're muted.
There we go. We are at item 5.0, and I would entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as proposed.
Thank you, Ms. Ujetti. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There is a second. Was that Mr. Carr?
And Ms. Humphries, I think we tied.
Mr. Carr, I would like to amend the motion and remove item 5.05, which is the purchase of performance baby grand pianos for Highland High School. In a conversation this afternoon with Mrs. Betts Business Services, we want to make sure that we cover our bases relative to all the procurement codes, and would like to run that through that process once again before it is approved. So my amendment would be to accept agenda items with the exception of 5.05. Accept that as a motion.
I will amend my motion to accept that.
Thank you. Ms. Humphries, Mr. Carr?
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion on the table and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we will take a vote. And Ms. Ujetti, if you would just please poll the board members for a vote. Ms. Wilson?
Thank you.
Ms. Wood,
Aye.
Mr. Carr,
Aye.
Ms. Ujetti,
Aye.
Ms. Humphries,
Aye.
Dr. Santa Cruz.
Aye.
Mr. President, you have 5 ayes with the amended motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. And Ms. Ujetti, I apologize. You would have done a nice job.
Thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz.
We're at item 6, action items. Item 6.01, Dr. McCord?
Thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz, governing board members. It is with great pleasure that I ask for your approval of Dr. Renee Kennedy as the new Director of Curriculum for the 2020-2021 school year. Mrs. Dr. Kennedy comes to us via Mesa Public Schools, but she was here in Gilbert Public Schools before that. And she's been over in Mesa as an assistant principal, as a principal of Shepherd Junior High, and then became Director of Teaching and Learning. And we are extremely excited to have her back. So again, all of my hope and desire is to have her here with us with your approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McCord. We have item 6.01 before us. Members of the board, do I have a motion?
I move that we appoint Dr. Renee Kennedy as the Curriculum Director for the 2020-2021 school year.
Thank you, Mrs. Humphries. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Uggetti.
That was a tie again, I
That
think.
was a tie. 2. Any discussion? Seeing none, we will take a vote. Would you please poll the members of the board for a vote?
Aye.
Mr. Carr? Ms. Uggetti?
Aye.
Ms. Humphries?
Aye.
Dr. Santa Cruz?
Aye. Motion carries.
5 ayes.
Motion carries, and I interrupted Mrs. Wilson there. Congratulations, Dr. Kennedy.
Dr. Kennedy, would you like to say a couple words?
Sure. I'd just like to thank the board and superintendency for this opportunity. As Dr. McCord said, I started my career in Gilbert, and this truly feels like a homecoming for me. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'm so excited to be a part of the future in Gilbert. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I'll clap.
That's a unanimous applause. I'll move to item 6.02, approval of modification of the 2019-2020 evaluation instrument for certified teachers. Dr. McCord.
Thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz, governing board members. We're asking for this modification for the evaluation instrument. Prior to spring break, there were some incomplete evaluations. To ensure statute is followed, ADE guidance is that observations should be conducted remotely in order to finalize evaluations. As a result, evaluations with outstanding observations will contain summary statements of effective remote learning indicators. The intent for this is so that teachers have the opportunity to demonstrate effectiveness for both evaluations and pay for performance purposes. This applies only to evaluations that lack the second observation data, and for evaluations that were already completed with all components. There is no need to modify. Those individuals would receive the appropriate evaluations respective of the pay for performance allotment. This information will be added to the evaluation summary form. In terms of domain 2, you'll enter notes that contain during this period of the remote learning, the teacher has participated in remote learning professional development opportunities to enhance their skills related to remote learning. The teacher has encouraged students to be active in their learning and provided resources to support the message that learning is still important during the remote process. In addition, the teacher has communicated consistently with parents and students via email and phone calls. The teacher uses an organized, family-friendly format to facilitate learning and convey expectations via their website, Google Classroom, and other online platforms. And in domain 3, it would read, the teacher provided clear direction and easily accessible resources to facilitate the learning process. The teacher has provided students with meaningful learning opportunities that are engaging and designed to meet the learner's academic needs. Collaboration between students was encouraged using WebEx and other online discussion platforms. Communication with families and students emphasized connecting with students, providing instructional guidance, and sharing specific, meaningful feedback for the student learning. And in the summary comment section, due to COVID-19, it will state, due to COVID-19, this evaluation does not conform to standard evaluation practices. There's missing data from a classroom observation that was not able to be used. Therefore, a modification was made to include other indicators to determine the teacher's effectiveness. Mouthful.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. McCord. We have item before us, that is item 6.02. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Humphries. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Uggetti. Any discussion?
I do want to make a comment. I know that this remote learning is very challenging, both for families and for teachers. And I hope we can get back to our classrooms. But I feel like everyone's made a really valiant effort. And when teachers have made this valiant effort, that should be recognized in their evaluation.
Thank you, Mrs. Humphries. Any other board members? I have one comment, and Dr. McCord, as you read those modifications, I was heartened by that. I'm only concerned that we really focus on the fact that, by way of example, let me use this. If a evaluation in the year previous was at a very high level, and because of our inability to get through the entire evaluation this cycle because of COVID-19, their evaluation verbiage is a degree lower than what it was the year before. Is that going to impact, or will that be settled through the summary comments? I'm concerned for teachers' morale and how they view themselves, having had a higher performing status verbally than what would show up this year. Are we allowing for that?
Dr. Santa Cruz, governing board members, that's a great question. We've had discussions with our principals pertaining to the evaluations and what this means, knowing that these are very challenging times, especially in an evaluation process for remote learning. This is intended to make sure that our staff is not negatively impacted by any of this that's going on. So those can be rectified in a comments section, but it's also to ensure the fact that we are not negatively impacting our staff as it relates to pay for performance.
Thank you, Dr. McCord. I appreciate that. Board members, any additional questions? Seeing none, then we will go ahead and take a vote. Mrs. Wilson, please poll the board for a vote.
Aye.
Mr. Carr,
Aye.
Ms. Uggetti,
Aye.
Ms. Humphries,
Aye.
Dr. Santa Cruz.
Aye.
Mr. President, motion carries 5 ayes.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. We will now move to item 0, approval of supplementary science kit purchase. Dr. McCord.
Thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz, governing board members. We're asking your approval of the supplementary science kits for K through 6, and we are recommending McGraw-Hill Inspire Science. Items to be purchased with teacher online access and replacement materials. And I'm just going to go through these real quick. For kindergarten, number of kits are 2, and it deals with weather and the sun and living things. In first grade, 2 kits all about plants and animals and how they communicate. Second grade, Earth's changing landscape, properties of materials. Third grade, information processing, living things, energy transfer. Fourth grade, our dynamic Earth and observing weather. And in 5th grade, 1 kit, forces and energy. And in 6th grade, 1 kit, matter energy, and ecosystems. Since this is only a supplemental purchase, a public review time period was not required, but we were thankful that we did make the materials available to our community. Some of the details below. At 4 locations, the public review extended over 4 weeks from February 10th through March 6th. The materials were located at the district office, community education, Spectrum Elementary, and Sonoma Ranch Elementary. After the school closures, the kits and materials were available for review at the district office through April 16th to finish the public review period. At each location, the display included teacher's manual, a brochure that gave an overview of the product, and kits containing the materials for the experiments and activities for each of the following grade bands: K through 2, 3 through 5, and 6th grade. GPS Elementary parents, staff, and principals received an email with the frequently asked questions, and information was also placed on the website, on the curriculum page, and as an announcement at district campuses. While we only received feedback from a small number of individuals, all were favorable with an average rating of 4.75 out of 5. For your approval.
Thank you, Dr. McCord. Item 6.03 is before you, members of the board. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the supplementary science kit purchase.
Thank you, Ms. Uggetti. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Any discussion?
I have a couple questions.
Go ahead, Mrs. Humphries.
These science kits are being purchased because we have new standards. Are there additional science kits? For example, you mentioned 2 science kits in 1st grade, Dr. McCord. Are there additional science kits for 1st grade that we're already using, or is that the number of science kits for 1st grade?
I'll defer to Dr. Newman for this.
Good evening, Dr. Santa Cruz, governing board members, and Dr. McCord. Yes, Ms. Humphries, there are additional ones. What we were able to do is keep the ones that were still applicable to the newly adopted standards. Some of them we moved to a different grade level, and that's why we also purchased less for some of the grades.
All right, thank you. That's what I was wondering about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Humphries. Any additional questions?
Dr. Santa Cruz, not a question, but I just would like to express my gratitude to the administration for making sure that this material was available. We recognize, as Dr. McCord said, it was not legally required, but to involve parents and to err on the side of involving parents is always greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Any additional commentary or question?
I did have one more comment. I do appreciate that we're providing these kits so we can have hands-on science projects with our kids in elementary school. I think that's a really good way to encourage their engagement and creativity and understanding of science. So thank you, Dr. Newman, for that.
Thank you, Mrs. Humphries. Thank you, Dr. Newman. Any additional questions? Seeing none, then we will go ahead and take the vote. Mrs. Wilson, please poll the board.
Aye.
Mr. Carr,
Aye.
Ms. Uggetti,
Aye.
Ms. Humphries,
Aye.
Dr. Santa Cruz.
Aye.
Mr. President, motion carries 5 ayes.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. We are now at item 6.04, Award of Assessment Platforms, RFP 2036-06-25. Dr. McCord.
Thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz, governing board members. This agenda item, the assessment platform solicitation process, was conducted in 3 phases: submitted proposals, oral interviews, and comprehensive software trials. In addition, input was taken from administrators, certified, and support staff members. This assessment platform will provide assessments for an estimated 35,000 K through 12 students, and the cost per student for the first year and the remaining up to 4 years of the contract will not exceed $11 per student. This contract will begin July 1st, 2020, will require a budget amount of $415,000 for the first year to include tax and implementation. In addition to the license cost per student, there's about $20,000 designated for professional development. The license cost and implementation will be budgeted in unrestricted capital fund 610, and the professional development cost of about $20,000 will be budgeted in the instructional improvement fund 020. Total first year cost is estimated to be $405,000.
Thank you, Dr. McCord. Item 6.04 is on the table. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Humphries. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Uggetti and Mr. Carr.
So I do have a couple questions. I would like Dr. Newman just to explain why we need a new assessment platform and what we're going to gain from this platform that we're purchasing at this time.
Thank you, Mrs. Humphries. Go ahead, Dr. Newman.
Right. For over several years, we have been looking for a new platform. We've heard repeatedly from our teachers that the platform itself was not user-friendly. It's not intuitive for our teachers. It makes it difficult for them to use it for the work that they're trying to collect and for the data they're trying to collect for their students, both for within their classroom and across their professional learning communities. With that, there was also an ownership change in the platform that we currently use, and we have had several problems. Our teachers have experienced beginning a test and the platform not working for them. That's required a lot of extra time on our teachers' end, on our students. Very frustrating for them to start an assessment and not be able to finish. And so for that reason, it was the right time. We had already initially tried to go out to find a product before, and we did not find one that suited our needs. But we do believe that this is the right one for us to move forward.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Newman. Any additional questions or commentary?
Dr. Santa Cruz, I also just want
Wood?
to, thank you, ask Dr. Newman, so how does this new program compare in costs to what we currently do?
It is a slight increase in cost, but what we get for that cost is more than what we would actually be spending. Right now, our current platform does not allow the opportunity for our kindergartners to participate in some of the practices that we do for our assessment. In addition to that, there are many monitoring and progress monitoring pieces of this platform that we'll be able to use throughout our kindergarten through 12th grade. In addition, it will make it much easier, especially for our secondary folks, to create assessments and do some real time and collection of data so that they can do some quick changes to instruction to meet the needs of what the students have at the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wood. Any other questions? Seeing none, Mrs. Wilson, please poll the board for the vote.
Aye.
Mr. Carr,
Aye.
Ms. Uggetti,
Aye.
Ms. Humphries,
Aye.
Dr. Santa Cruz.
Aye.
Mr. President, motion carries 5 ayes.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. We'll now move to item 6.05, proposal for school entity changes. Dr. McCord.
Dr. Santa Cruz, governing board members, we're asking the approval to add grade UE, which stands for ungraded elementary, to Harris Elementary, Highland Park Elementary, Pioneer Elementary, Court Hill Elementary, and Settlers Point Elementary. By adding grade level UE to the elementary schools listed, this will be able to align all of our elementary schools. Adding grade UE will allow us to receive a full ADM for kindergarten special education students. These are the last 5 elementary schools to be approved for grade UE.
Thank you, Dr. McCord. At item 6.05, Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the school entity changes for the school year 2019-20.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Uggetti.
Sorry, that was Mrs. Humphries.
Mrs. Humphries, thank you. Any discussion?
Dr. Santa Cruz,
Yes, Mrs. Wood.
I just want to ask Dr. McCord, as far as from a student perspective or parent perspective, they won't see any change in what happens. This is just a change in the classification.
Ms. Wood, you are exactly correct. This is just for reporting purposes, the state, and for funding purposes. So when we are reimbursed for special education students at that level, we are funded appropriately.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wood. Is there any additional question? Seeing none, then I'll defer to Ms. Wilson to poll the board for a vote.
Aye.
Mr. Carr,
Aye.
Ms. Uggetti,
Aye.
Humphries,
Aye.
Dr. Santa Cruz.
Aye.
Mr. President, motion carries 5 ayes.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. Now move to item 7, request for future agenda items. If you have none at this, please make contact with Mrs. Wilson and she'll add them to our next agenda. Moving to item 8, and we'll get into committee reports. 8.01, Mrs. Humphries, Town of Gilbert, Gilbert Education Foundation.
Yes, I spoke with our executive director, Teresa Dudson. Right now, we have the scholarships have been read and will be awarded. So they are creating a video to do a virtual event towards scholarships to students and to educators. And that will be coming out soon. She'll let us know when that's going to happen. Also, there is a special fundraiser so that if there are families and staff in Gilbert Public Schools in need of additional aid because of this COVID-19 shutdown, we can give people that help. So people are welcome to donate to the Gilbert Education Foundation so that we can have our social services, our SHAME program, award those little grants to help people through. Thirdly, they're still working to do the grants that have been given to teachers. And one of the things that has been ongoing is the garden at Boulder Creek Elementary. They're preparing to do the farm to table efforts that we're hoping to have in all of our schools. So their garden is almost finished and they're really excited about that.
Thank you, Mrs. Humphries. Item 8.02, City of Mesa Liaison, Mrs. Woods.
Yes, I just had a couple updates from council member. He wanted people to know that Mesa has received funding as part of the CARES Act, but they're waiting on instructions from the federal government as to what it can be used for, and they'll let the city members know as soon as they know. The city remains closed and employees are working from home. They've had to furlough a few employees, but are working hard to reassign as many as they can and keep them employed until we can get back on our feet again. And the city contacted their nonprofits and businesses, and the overreaching response was that they need funding and food. The City of Mesa is going to be doing canned food drives in the coming weeks to help replenish the shelves at United Food Bank and the food banks here in Gilbert. So if we can support that as we can. That was the update from Mesa.
Thank you, Ms. Wood, for your report. Town of Gilbert Liaison, Mr. Carr.
Thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz. had a conversation this afternoon with Mr. Bill Spence, who is a new council member and has been appointed the liaison to Gilbert Public Schools. We're excited to have him aboard and to build a relationship there. Would just highlight, as many know, that with elections coming up, several council members have resigned. So we have 3 new council members and that have taken office in the last 6 weeks or shorter. Mr. Spence, who is our liaison, is a GPS parent who lives over near Mesquite High School, and he expressed in our conversation, or asked me to express, his deep gratitude for the schools, for the support that he has seen as a parent and as a member of the town council from parents or from teachers and faculty, and is excited about, although not ideal, is still excited about the learning opportunities that his children have had. So we look forward to working with him and finding opportunities to increase the cooperation.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Continue with your Finance Audit Committee report, 8.04.
Nothing to report. The audit committee has not met since we last spoke.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Insurance Trust Representative, Ms. Ugetti, a report?
Yes, fortunately, we met this afternoon at 4 o'clock on WebEx, and we are in a very good place. As we've said before, one of the things that happened today is we talked about Teledoc, which is getting to call your doctor on the telephone. And GPS is one of the most used in the series with our consultants. So far this year, we've saved $99,000 by using Teledoc. And as of today, with all of the reports that we have, no one in our district that's on the insurance has tested positive for COVID.
Thank you, Mrs. Ugetti. 8.06, the legislative agenda. You have been sent a copy of the ASBA legislative agenda, which we will address and entertain and discuss, I believe, on the 5th or at a work study session. I think that's correct, Dr. McCord. Is the 5th one we're going to discuss that?
Yes, sir. We'll have it as a work study agenda item.
Okay. And then beyond that, we're still waiting for word from the governor regarding community closures and probably information from the legislature relative to their status or whether or not they're going to adjourn. So we are really in limbo in lots of ways, but we have lots of work ahead of us, and that legislative agenda from ASBA may prove interesting. So that's my report. Item 9.0, meeting dates. 9.01, Dr. McCord.
The next meeting we have is next Tuesday, 6:30, May 5th. It will be a board work study and brief board business meeting. As you discussed a second ago, Dr. Santa Cruz, we'll have some ASBA political agenda items to discuss, as well as hopefully we'll be able to have some information regarding graduation that we can discuss during that time. And that's
Will we be doing that meeting virtually as well?
That meeting will be done virtually. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else, Dr. McCord?
Nothing other than thank you for joining us this evening, all of our governing board members, cabinet members. This was our first shot at doing something like this, and I think it went very well. I'm sure Mr. Castellano will give us some feedback on what we can do to improve, but I truly do appreciate it. Thank you guys for everything.
We thank you and staff, particularly Mr. Castellano, for making this first venture for us. We are now at item 10, movement for adjournment. A motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Uggetti. Is there a second? I will second that. I will second that. And we are adjourned, or I can turn it to Mrs. Wilson for holding of the board for adjournment.
Ms. Wood,
Aye.
Mr. Carr,
Aye.
Ms. Uggetti,
Aye.
Ms. Humphries,
Aye.
Dr. Santa Cruz.
Aye.
Mr. President, motion carries 5 ayes.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. Thank you, Dr. McCord. Thank you, staff. Thank you, board members. We are adjourned.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.